Welcome back to Echo Ridge. Today, I get the privilege of being able to show you Millennia, a new 4X game that I've already managed to put about 20 hours into, thanks to the amazing folks over at Paradox who are sponsoring this video. Now, just being the fact that it is a 4X game, there is a lot of similarities with other 4X titles, but where the brilliance of this game really shines through is in its differences. And I think the best way to really highlight that is by doing a standard Let's Play. I'm going to put a little bit more emphasis on teaching and explaining since the game is new. In fact, as of this recording, it is scheduled to be released on the 26th of March. But not only is the game new, there are a lot of systems and concepts, both subtle and blatant, that I think add a lot to the 4X genre. All of the nations play the same. The only difference for you as the player is their art skin. But for the AI, they will have different sort of mentalities. So when you're playing against the United States, it'll be vastly different than when playing against Brazil. We can select any of the nations that have not already been chosen, or we can keep it as random. I think for this game, we're going to start as Rome. We also get to select a starting bonus, and the one I have found that I like the most is with starting with an extra scout. Millennia is not different in the fact that you can get a great head start with the game by being able to emphasize one of those 4X's and exploring as quickly as possible. For the rest of the settings, we're going to keep it as standard, or the sort of default way to play with adept. AI difficulty, it does go all the way up to Grandmaster though. 8 players, continents, and medium map size. You can build your own nation. You type in a name, you select their flag, and then you can choose the art style of both the cities and the towns. So without further ado, let's get going. Now, one of the first things that you'll notice about Millennia is its art style. And I say that to mean I think it has a very painted style. When we start off on our open screen, it's the standard left click to select and then right click to move. This down here is our army pane though. And notice that there is both this warband and a scout sitting in this army. I don't want them to be traveling together though, because our scout, as one might suspect, has a higher movement. You can also see that in the UI with the movement of 30 compared to the standard warband movement of 20. So I'm going to take the scout. I see water up here, so I think we're going to head down south. We start with a pair of warbands, one right north of the city. So I think we'll take this guy and move him up here. We'll probably travel the coastline, and then I'll take this warband and head over to the west. You'll notice in the army pane that there is slots for up to 3 units. This is expandable through research as you progress through the game. But now that we've moved all of our units, on turn 1 it's time to choose our technology. And this is where one of those blatant differences from a lot of other 4X games comes into play. The game is broken up into many different ages. We start in the Age of Stone. Next is going to be the Age of Bronze. And this first transition from the first age to the second is the only one in the game that doesn't have multiple ages that you can actually end up in. In order to advance to the next age, we have to research 3 of 5 technologies and then sort of research the next age. But before we can worry about that, it's time to get some initial tech going. I really like starting with scouting because it'll give you a free scout in our homeland. It also unlocks the lookout building and gives us the ability to travel through deep forest and jungle. Now, one thing I wanted to highlight on this lookout is the fact that it's a building. When I first started playing, I was often confused by the difference between a building and an improvement, like the plantation over here. Improvements go on the map and bolster each individual tile, as you may suspect. For instance, we could put a plantation over here on these olives, or you could put a mine on the hills. Whereas buildings go inside of your region capitals. This is the region of Alexandria and the capital. And here we can see the buildings that are inside that specific capital. It's also where we could queue up production for units, but in this case, we're already getting an extra scout from that research, so I think we're going to go with the town center to get the extra government XP. Hold on to your hats, because there are a lot of details in this game, and we will get to all of them. So I'll just select the town center, which will cost us 21 production. And as we can see up here in our income, right now we only have 2 production per turn. But notice we also have 1 improvement points per turn. And this is another fundamental difference between the buildings that we see in here and the improvements that we make out here. Improvements on your tiles require these improvement points. Building units or buildings inside your capitals require production. We also have influence, which is pretty self-explanatory. The more influence you have, the further you're going to expand on the map. We have our food, and is used to grow the population. We have our wealth or gold, and then we have knowledge and culture. These are a little bit different. We also have a section called domain. More on that in a minute as well. We've moved our units, we selected our research, and we started producing something out of Alexandria. All that's left is to hit end turn. Also wanted to do a quick note on some of the art features is the fact that I do have the hex grids turned on. And a feature that I really liked is over in the options under interface, you can actually change the opacity and the hex grid line width of those hexes. So we could go from pretty dark to where I like to keep it pretty light. Because let's be honest, hexagons truly are the bestagons, and I want to appreciate them. Next turn, we're going to do more of the same with our scouting. Oh, I like seeing this. This looks like a very strong opportunity for another region. Thanks to the forest, some sheep, some game, and some grapes. But there's also a river here, which helps farm growth, and a couple of hills over here. Although I do see a border here. We'll have to find out what that border is soon. No new info going west. And let me head up to the coast so I can start exploring and see what the outline of this continent is. Does look like there's some land right across a strait here, so I'm probably going to double back. And then that would be it for this turn as well. Let's go find out who this neighbor is. Lucky for us, it is a minor nation. Minor nations we can work with and absorb by making them our vassal, or we could just destroy them and wipe them off the map. I don't see a big reason for taking them as a vassal because their land is not that great. So we will probably eventually end up taking that one. So far, we've gotten a bit unlucky. I'm looking for camps that'll give us a nice boon, and there is one right here. Unfortunately, it's sitting right next to a barbarian camp. And just like in many other 4X games, the barbarians in the first few ages are definitely a nuisance. But this tribal camp, we are going to scoop up. We get a nice little message and small story with a couple of options. Apparently, there's a village built around a large stone monolith. Its etchings and carvings tell a complex story in an unknown language. Very significant to the village people, more significant to me, because now I'm going to be able to get extra knowledge or culture. In this beginning part of the game, I definitely want to accelerate my knowledge. So I will select it, and just like that, it's going to allow us to complete our research. And since we completed our research, we were just given another scout. So we're going to take this one and move up. I'm glad we did too, because we have discovered a whole little peninsula here. It also means that it is time to select our new research. One thing I like, you won't really be able to see it this early in the game, but the more a technology has been researched by all players, the cheaper it will become. I want to go look at the map first. I do have a reason why I'd want to get plantations online due to the olives and the flax. So the decision for me is whether or not and whether it'd be fruitful to go ahead and get plantations now or go grab tribal elders so that I can unlock the council building to get another +1 to knowledge. There's also the benefit of defenses. Not only do we unlock the ability to get archers, we also get a free archer and gain warfare XP. And I promise we'll get into this as well. In this case, I think I am going to get tribal elders because our production is almost done, and I would like to make the council building the next step we produce. Now, over in the top left, you see we've talked about our research. We'll talk about culture here in a minute when it pops, but you'll notice there's a little 2 by tribal, and these are our domains. Right now, it's a little difficult to explain what these domains are because we only have one. Remember how I talked about warfare? Warfare will be another domain, but our government domain has tribal listed under it because we're a tribal government. If we select it, you can see that we can take some of this domain government experience and unlock tribal farming, or unlock the ability to raise tribal army as a government domain power. In this case, I'm not going to do either of these, because if I select government instead of tribal, we see the domain powers. Right now there's only one, and it costs 30 government experience. Well, I really want to get this settler, so I'm not going to spend any of this experience until I get it. Of note, you will unlock plenty of other domains, each with their own different and significant domain powers. For now, though, we're just going to keep the status quo because we are saving up for that settler. We have found our first barbarians out in the open. I'm going to go ahead and tuck behind this river here, and that way if the barbarians do choose to attack, they will be attacking across a river, so we'll get a pretty good defensive bonus. This scout over here, though, I'm just going to keep running away. I have nothing here to protect, and also I still want to do a lot of exploration because I'm looking for monuments and those tribal camps. There's another barbarian over here. I will take the warband, and instead of attacking into a forest, which means they would get a defensive bonus, I'm just going to move into the forest. So if they decide to attack me, I will get the defensive bonus. Also during this turn, you see that we now have a cultural power ready. Remember we're gaining that cultural experience? Well, when it gets filled up, we get to use a culture power, which is sort of similar to these domain powers. In this case, we have two options, local reforms and create a town. Local reforms gives us a small efficiency boost, but the town increases our region level and will give us some money based on how many improvements are around it. Now the towns are done on the map itself, and you can do it one tile out of your borders. And I think we're gonna go probably on this tile here. As soon as we do, the new town is founded. But the reason why I chose this tile is I'm gonna be able to put a farm here, I'm gonna be able to put a plantation here, and a bunch of improvements here. And all of these adjacent improvements are going to help spread more wealth to Alexandria. For now, though, the town just sort of extends our borders and anecdotally makes our capital harder to take with more defenders. During the barbarians' turn, they did choose to attack us. We have a couple of options of how we want to view this. One, we can just look at the health bars and see how it ended up, and then right-click this symbol, or we can go see how the combat actually unfolded. Now the combat in the game is automatic, and you're seeing how they take turns between hitting. If you want to get more of an explanation of what's going on, you can open up the combat log. Some other things that you're looking for here is notice that we got the 40% defensive adjustment. Also, there's two bars under each unit. One is for morale, and the other is health. When highlighting over the unit itself, you can see the attack and defensive rating of each unit. You can also see it over on the enemy side as well. Now, because of that 40% bonus, I'm still going to stay right here, except for this turn, I'm going to hit guard, which will allow us to heal a little bit outside of our own borders. We also had another combat over here. We'll take a quick look at it. This is one warband versus a barbarian. Notice our warband took 2 attacks that turn. At the end, we did fairly well. We did a little bit better thanks to this defensive adjustment of them attacking into us on a forest tile. I'm going to do the same with this unit, which is sort of sacrificing some of our scouting. And then with this warband over here, I'm going to jump on this tribal camp. Now here we get 2 options. We can get 10 additional warfare XP or spawn another warband. I'm definitely going to spawn another warband, mostly due to the fact that their barbarian camp was sitting right here, so I want to make sure we're running around protected. I'm also going to bring these 2 units together, and that way we have a stack of 3 warbands doing this exploration, and we'll probably be able to take this camp as well. After the combat, our warfare domain is unlocked, and this happened because with every combat, you're going to get 1 warfare XP. If we select warfare, you can see there's a domain power in here that we can spawn volunteers. And in this case, it would spawn a warband. The foolish barbarians down here attacked into us again, and it looks like they are about routed, so we will finish them off here. And down they go. And then I'm going to swing these folks down. And next turn, I will join them up, and we'll start our assault on the barbarian camp. Our scout got attacked across the river again. We can also skip to the end of combat if you don't want to see it. You just want to see how it fell out instead of just canceling it on the map. And it looks like we still are going to be fine. We have a little bit more health than that barbarian, so we're going to stay guarded. And this scout's going to continue, and lucky for us, we found yet another tribal camp. It's not going to be too much longer before we run into our first enemy AI, which is why this scouting is so key, because I want to be able to get as many of the tribal camps before the AI does. And the barbarian did manage to kill themselves on our scout. I'm going to pop back in here real quick just to heal. And once they're healed, which they will do faster in our own territory, we'll continue on scouting to the north. We found some lost archers. We can get plus 10 warfare XP or let them join. We're definitely going to grab them, but I don't want them traveling around with us because they will slow that scout down. There was a barbarian up there, so I'm going to be somewhat careful. Archers are great when they're paired up with a warband, but not so great when they are by themselves. Now, one great feature that other 4Xs do not have is an undo button. You can't use it on all sorts of things, but if you ever misclick and move, you can take it back. In this case, I'm going to allow the fact that I knew there was a barbarian up there to at least have the scout join up with the archer to get around so that we're stronger, and then I'll separate them out once I know the archer is safely heading back up here. Oh, that barbarian attacked into us and was instantly slaughtered. This is what I was talking about with the archers being so good when they have a line in front of them, because the archers themselves can keep attacking and they have a bonus versus line troops. Line troops are just like the barbarians were, musketmen, swordsmen, those sorts of things. And now that we're safe, at least for now, I'll separate the archer and then have the scout move out again. And we found another tribal camp. Yay for us! This is the turn that we're going to begin our attack on the barbarian outpost. And this outpost does have fortifications that we have to knock down first. Some archers here would be very beneficial because they'd be able to shoot over the encampment, hitting the barbarians. At the end, we ended up damaging the palisade walls quite a bit, but it's going to take another turn or two to be able to wipe out this tribe. Look at this barbarian. Ran right up onto the tribal camp. Now this scout is already damaged, but I want that tribal camp, so I'm going to try to bait them over here. I think I can deal with one hit. Now notice here we have another minor nation. Maybe they'll go bother the minor nation instead? Doubtful. Or I could move this archer down to assist. Yeah, that's probably the smarter play. We've finished tribal elders and unlocked the council building. Notice now that farming is a little bit cheaper, and if we highlight over it, you can see why. It's because 3 other nations have researched it. So I'm going to take the opportunity to grab farming on the cheap. We have 2 turns left until our town center is finished being built in Alexandria. Alexandria's needs are only at 125%. These needs will change based on the size of the region, and later on we will see needs for housing, sanitation, education, and they'll just keep expanding. For now, though, it looks like we are growing because of the 125%, but if we lost one of our food, it would hurt our growth because we'd only be meeting 100% of our food need. Now, I could improve some of these tiles. We have 9 improvement points, and we're gaining 1 per turn. And if I select it over here, you can see all the improvements that you have access to. Well, we could grab a hunting camp to grab a little bit of meat. I want to save those improvement points, though, because I know I'm going to want to put a plantation down on these olives or on this flax. But we're not going to be able to do that for another 4 turns. All right, our archers are combined back with our scout. I don't love the reduced movement, but perhaps this is the better move anyways. So when we do run into these little one-off barbarians, oh yeah, and they attacked into us, and another barbarian scooted down. I'm probably not going to show too many more of these until we hit some of the later ages and the units have changed up. But I wanted to highlight again how great it is having archers on your back line. I'm going to scoot right past this other barbarian because I'm not sure how much more our scout can take, but I definitely wanted these goodies. A massive temple pyramid lays before us. Its content and purpose are unknown. This gives us the ability to unlock another domain in exploration or get 10 more warfare XP. Now we know the warfare XP will allow us to spawn another unit, but in this case, for the purpose of the video, I'm going to go with the exploration XP just so I can show you that we've unlocked another domain. Yeah, it would have been great to spawn some fresh volunteers, giving us a new warband for 25 warfare XP, but we could also use exploration to spawn a new scout for only 20. Now, eventually, we'll have buildings and systems that'll give us exploration XP every single turn, but for now, our income is 0. There must be a barbarian camp pretty close because we have another barbarian coming from over here, but this time I'm just going to scoot by them because our scouting over here is really starting to suffer. Production's finished in Alexandria on the town center, so we are going to be getting +1 to government XP. And here's where we can go grab that council and get +1 to the knowledge. We could also grab palisade walls, which would put the same sort of walls that we saw around the barbarian camp, or a lookout tower, which would increase that exploration XP we were talking about earlier. It also gives us the ability to fire from the map and using what they call a capital attack. Not only does the capital attack, which works similar to other games, a unit sitting here and we would just attack, but it also attacks during combat as well. In this case though, I want the knowledge, so we'll grab it and go. We're getting close to being able to spawn our settler with 30 XP. I want the game to remind me that I want to do that, and this is a nice little feature because you're eventually going to have a lot of these domain powers and you're going to forget what you were saving up for. Or you got so much going up on the map that you completely miss when you get 30 XP. So I'm going to have the game remind me by holding control and left clicking, and now it has a little bell. It looks like our scouts did perish in the attack, which is unfortunate. It cost the barbarians their lives, but our archers did remain unharmed. I'm not going to use the archers as a scout. I'm going to send them back to our home as quickly as possible and then try to do as much as we can with this scout. And there's that other pesky barbarian. I'll stay here in the woods for this turn. We've also got another cultural power. We now have access to Eureka, which gives us an immediate boost to our knowledge. Or we can use the Raise Army, which would spawn 2 warbands. Remember, this is using our cultural powers, which are often really powerful. Now, before I do that, if I decided not to do it, it would stay at the ready and we could use it next turn. But notice it says cultural 16 out of 16. Well, next turn we'd have 17 out of 16. We finished off farming this turn, which means it's time to choose the new tech. And I want to go directly towards the Age of Bronze. It doesn't mean we can't come back here for these, but I want to be the first one to advance into the Age of Bronze. And so with that selected, I'm then going to go back into our culture and hit our Eureka power, which gave us a decent amount of progress in our research. Notice it says the Age of Bronze may become the future in 9 turns, and it's due to Rome. And that's because once the first player advances to an age, that's the age the entire world is going into. More on that when we do advance. We have met another nation in the form of China, so we can go take a look at them in our diplomacy screen. There's a couple of things we need to look out for. They are opportunist, which will impact how they play, and they also have a power score of 132. You don't want to appear to be too much weaker than they are, or they will take advantage of that fact. All right, the barbarian moved in, so I'm gonna move out and slide right past them. And then on the next turn, we'll really be able to leave them in the dust. And look, here's another tribal camp. And by now you can probably see how valuable these tribal camps are, considering how much of a boon they've given us. In this case, we can get 50 wealth or 5 production back in Alexandria. I'm going to go with the production because I don't need the wealth right now, and we're eventually going to have plenty of it. Also here on turn 15, it looks like we have enough government XP to spawn a settler, which we will do. So it'll spawn out of Alexandria, which reduces our government XP down to 0. Now I just got to get this settler down to this spot that I thought was so juicy. I need to be very careful though, because I don't have any military units around here, and there is a barbarian camp down there. I think I will start to sneak out. Notice the settler vision is not very good. Over here, our army is just about full health, so I'm going to take the opportunity to attack back in to the barbarian tribe. Their palisades were repaired a little bit, but I was fine with that because now I know I'm not going to lose one of my war bands. And it looks like the palisades are going to go down this next hit, so next time we meet in combat, we'll be able to destroy the unit itself. Our scout in the north is getting pincered by a pair of barbarians, so I need to try to get away. I don't think I can take another hit, So if I move over into these woods, there's that barbarian camp right there. Look at these juicy tiles here. I might want to send another settler up over here. Notice the fresh, fertile grassland. A lot of resources here. Some forest, even some hills. Here's a barbarian up here, but I don't think we're going to have to worry about them as our settler's almost to the spot. I'm thinking either this tile or this tile. This tile is a grassland, which has more use to me than this scrubland. So if I settle on the scrubland, I might have better overall tiles. Barbarians tried to attack into Alexandria. Even though we don't have any palisade walls or any units that you saw on the tile, we do have our city militia. Your city militia will grow in the ages, similar to how your other units do, but I was not worried about the barbarian, especially considering they attacked across the river, thanks to Rome being situated on the river. Now, because we moved this turn, I can't settle. I have to wait until we have no movement points left, and we do have a couple of movement. So I'm going to spend one to move into this grassland just to explore. And of course, there's another barbarian camp, and we will move right back. This is another good turn for us, though, because we now have 15 improvement points, which is enough for a plantation. Notice that we could have put down a farm earlier on, say, this grassland here. We can do that by selecting the improvement pane and clicking improvement, such as plantation, and it'll show you where all the plantations can go. Or we can click farms, and it shows where all any farms could go. Or we can go to the individual tile, and it shows what's eligible. In this case, we could put a farm here, cost us 12 improvement points, but we'd get 1 wheat, which is worth 3 food. Or on the olives, we can put down a plantation, which is going to be worth 2 food and 2 wealth. So that is definitely what I want to do. Now when we go into Alexandria, if we click over on the workers pane, you can see we do have a worker, which the AI will automatically assign these, or you can do them manually on the plantation tile. And for that, we're getting 2 food and 1 olives. And this is another major difference from a lot of 4X games. We now have access to olives. As we play, there's going to be a lot of goods up here, but you can take these goods and transform them for even more output. As a further example, in our new city that we're getting ready to set down here, we're going to be able to work these grapes, and we'll eventually be able to build another improvement that could take the grapes and turn them into wine, just as we'll be able to do by working these cattle, gaining access to leather and meat, and it'll be much easier to show you those further in the game as well. Our archers are getting in a little bit of trouble over here, so I'm going to jump up on this hill. So if they are able to attack us, it's going to hurt them for attacking into a defensive position, although they're not going to have the movement to both move 2 tiles and one of those tiles being a hill, because each tile has its own movement cost. And moving into hills or forest costs more than moving into flatland. Our settlers reached their destination, and we're able to found a new region. Now to start off with, this region is a vassal. You aren't able to manually control it. It will keep growing on its own. In this case, it's going to take 15 turns before we're able to fully absorb this region into our empire. Until then, they will provide a small amount of income for us. They'll also grow and work tiles just like we are. Now, if we wanted to speed this up, we could increase their prosperity. And we're able to do that by using things like merchants and other tools that we'll find later in the game. Our archers did get attacked from the back, and it cost them about 50% of their health, but I think we're finally going to make it into one of our regions, so they will be fine. We have enough warfare XP to use their volunteer domain power, which we are going to do because our military is really not strong enough. And now this army has both a warband and an archer. And in 5 turns, I think we're going to raise an army to get a couple more units, both for the ability to stay strong in China's eyes, but also because I need to start clearing some of these barbarian camps. And having a strong army, such as this one over here, will help make that process a lot easier. Time to finally destroy this encampment that I may or may not have completely forgotten about, and they still lived with just a little bit of health. Next turn, buddy. I'm not saving up for another settler, so I think it is time to put some points into our tribal government. In this case, I'm going to be able to get +1 food for our homeland, and I'm going to unlock the raised tribal army power. Now this is a government domain power. So now when we click on government, we can see that there's 2 domain powers, and it'll only cost 10 to raise that tribal army. We have finally completed the research and have entered the Age of Bronze. There's a list of stuff that it unlocks. Of note, vassals will now integrate twice as fast, and there's some stronger barbarians that are going to be able to run around now. But now that we've unlocked the Age of Bronze, you can see the Age of Stone is still back there. We can go back, and we will, grab some of these other techs. But notice the next age has 3 possibilities. Now, the world is already in an Age of Bronze. Even if a player is still sitting here plugging away at research in Age of Stone, their only options to go to Age of Bronze. In the same way, if we unlock and go into the Age of Iron and we're the first ones to do it, the Age of Blood and the Age of Heroes will be removed. And the only place for the next player to go to is in the Age of Iron. The first player to reach the next age sets the age for the entire world. So there is a bit of strategy on how fast you want to go with your research. If you start realizing, hey, I'm getting outpaced on our knowledge, well, then I'm just going to take the opportunity and go back into some previous ages and grab these techs, because I'm not going to be the one to unlock them anyways. In this case, I'm not in a hurry for any of these quite yet, and I do want that archer, so I'm going to go back and grab defenses. We have another button that appeared up here, and that's another unlock from the Age of Bronze. In this case, we get to select a national spirit. This happens every 2 ages, and you can see from the names that these national spirits are how you define your civilization, and they're sorted by domains. In this case, we have access to an engineering domain and a diplomacy domain, even though we don't have it over here. And the reason why it's not over here yet is because we haven't earned any of that experience. We also get a bonus reward. So for selecting Olympians, we'll get 5 bonus XP of the diplomacy type. When we select it, we can either select or close it back out. You'll notice it looks sort of like the tribal government screen. And that's how these national spirits, just like your government, sort of play. As you get experience in each of those domains, you're able to unlock more abilities. Now, another advantage of beating the AI to unlocking the next age is the fact that I get first pick. When I select Olympians here, there's no longer going to be a bonus for selecting it, and all of these national spirits are going to get a bigger bonus. We will select Olympians because the ability to host Olympic Games using the diplomacy cultural power is very strong. But before I unlock that cultural power, it's going to take me 20 diplomacy experience. But once we've done it, now notice we have another domain in our list. And there's our Olympians national spirit. I think this is the term we're finally going to be able to take down this camp. And when we do, we get another bonus, sort of like you do with the tribal camp. In this case, we can get plus 15 production on Alexandria, or we can get a free crossbow. Now this is pretty cool because we don't have access to the crossbow yet, but the 15 production is just too good. Now another new term that I need to explain is the fact that it also offered 10 chaos. If we take a look in the top right, next to our wealth is our accumulated innovation and our accumulated chaos. At this point, we're getting 10 innovation per turn. Once the innovation meter fills, we'll get a positive event, and normally they're pretty good. Likewise, if we start gaining chaos, when we filled its meter, we'd get a very negative event. So it's very good to keep trying to get as much innovation as possible so you keep unlocking all those positive events. There's many ways to gain innovation and chaos. Most notably on the chaos side is taking over enemy cities. In Alexandria, with that bonus production, we've finished off the council building. And next, I'm going to be going for the work camp because it gives us 2 more production in the city and engineering experience. And as you may have guessed it, based on the fact that it's an experience, engineering is a domain. We're up to 15 experience in our government, so I think we're going to use this ability to raise a tribal army, except I'm going to raise it down here in Caesarea. And now we have a full stack that I can go cause some pain and discomfort to this barbarian tribe right here. We finished defenses, which gave us that free archer and the ability to create archers, plus a little bit of warfare experience. I don't really care about workers quite yet, even though the 8 improvement points would be big. In fact, while I let the AI make these techs a little cheaper, I am going to grab it. The +8 improvement points is just too much to pass up for only 3 turns of research. I'm going to bring this army back, give them an archer, and then I'm going to leave one war band in the city and send that army over here to destroy this barbarian camp. Now, if we highlight over Alexandria, there is another meter I need to show you called Unrest. Right now, because we have a garrisoned unit, we're getting -4 to Unrest. The larger this region grows, the more unrest will be possible. So you have to take steps to reduce it. Otherwise, rebels will spawn and bad things occur. Now, there are plenty of buildings later in the tree that also reduce unrest, but early game, one of the best ways is to garrison a unit, most especially this city guard unit. The city guard has an unrest suppression of 8 versus a regular warband's unrest suppression of only 4. After 2 attacks, our small army in the south was able to destroy this barbarian encampment. Oh my goodness, that is such a huge bonus. Gives us the ability to spawn a catapult, or again, get 15 bonus production in Alexandria. The catapult would be very big, but I don't know if I want the chaos to go with it, so we're going to take the production, because the faster we can make Alexandria grow, the better. And now we only have 9 turns remaining left on our work camp. Speaking of which, how are we doing on improvements? We could put down a hunting camp, which would give us access to a meat which is worth 3 food. And I think that's worth it, because right now we're only at 167% growth, and this will definitely grow it. Notice, because of the hunting camp, we now have access to meat as well as olives. And when we highlight over each good, it says what it's giving us. The olives with +2 to wealth, and the meat with +3 to food. Now, I don't know if these Chinese units were also just trying to take care of that barbarian encampment, or if they're about to start causing a ruckus. We're going to find out. Next, cultural power. I'm going to take a look at the Chinese power score, and it's at 207. So I think we really do have to raise army. So I will spawn them there, and then we can move them out and go take care of that encampment. Now, under our diplomacy domain, there's a few domain powers that we start off with. Spawn merchants and integrate vassals. Integrate vassal would help fill this meter a little bit, whereas spawning a merchant would create a unit. If we sent that merchant in to this region, it would increase their prosperity, which makes them grow faster, and also increases the income that they're paying into our empire. Which brings up an important point. I fully plan on converting this region, but there's nothing to say that you can't just keep putting down more and more vassals and never convert them. In fact, there are some advantages to it, because for every region that you have control of, there's a cultural upkeep. Right now, we're not having to pay an upkeep. We've completed workers, which is going to give us that big bonus to improvement points. And when we come back to the Age of Bronze techs, you can see some of them are marketably cheaper. Now, I like discipline because it gives us a larger army size. We can have 4 units. It also unlocks the spear unit, but I'm all about our growth. So I think I'm going to grab community so that we get access to the crane, which will give us +1 improvement points per turn. Notice it also unlocks some improvements. In this case, the saw pit, which could take 3 logs from that goods list that we showed you in the city and turn it into 3 lumber. So instead of it providing ×2 production for each of the logs, it would be providing ×4 production. The alternative is, based on our options of these cheaper techs, is belief, because the temple building gives us +1 to culture and knowledge. Here's the vats improvement, which allows us to turn grapes into wine, as we talked about a little earlier. The press improvement, which allows us to turn olives to cooking oil, which could be very strong, but I don't think we have 2 olives to be able to do that. Let me check and see where our building status is in Alexandria. We still have 7 turns. In this case, I think I'm going to go with the regional growth for those extra improvement points, and then I'll come back and get belief, because the faster we can get Alexander to grow, the better our civilization is going to be. China just issued us a warning, says our forces are a little too close, and that's because we found their border over here when we were just snooping and pooping around. I don't want to make war with them, so I am going to move back. I do need to start looking at expanding more though, but settlers now are costing 36, so I have the choice of where I can gain +1 knowledge or +1 improvement points, or just save up for another settler. We'll also have the ability to spawn an envoy, which is the last domain power under diplomacy, at least currently. If we take this envoy and we send it into one of these minor powers, they become our vassal. The issue, though, is none of these minor nations are very good, but I definitely don't like to be stuck on 2 regions. Another option we have is to pay 25 government experience and integrate Caesarea. And that way we start getting a lot more bonuses because we'll be working it directly. That's probably what our next step is with that government experience. We have saved up 15 improvement points, so I think we are going to put down a plantation. If I had one of these forest tiles, I'd be tempted to grab it for the production. We also haven't unlocked mining yet. It's coming soon. When we do, we can start improving these hill tiles. But we'll grab this plantation here because it's also going to give us a bonus food for being next to a river. And now we have access to flax. Now I know we've gone over a lot so far, but I wanted to be able to give you a peek at some of the later elements of the game. But in order to do it with Rome in this specific game, it would take quite some time. So I'm going to load up a previous game to be able to give you a peek at the late game, because I'm sure it's going to increase your interest in this title. And that way, when you tell me in the comments below, hey Echo, I really want to see more Millennia, we can continue on with our Rome Let's Play. In this save, I was playing as the United States. It's the year 1662, and we're on turn 195. Look at all of our wonderful domains. In this game, I also prioritized production, and you'll notice there's a lot of improvements around here. And in order to highlight one of the great aspects of Millennia, I want to show you this brickworks. It's converting 3 clay to 3 bricks. When we go into Pittsburgh, we have 2 bricks up here. And for each of those bricks, we're getting 2 production and 2 improvement points. Here's another production chain you might like. And this is the blast furnace, which is converting 2 copper or iron to 2 ingots. Back into the capital screen, you can see that we're using those ingots and we're turning them into tools. And we're doing that with the toolsmith improvement. So that production chain started by this one tile here. We were mining it for 1 copper for 2 production. Same with this one over here. Sending it to a blast furnace, which is converting 2 copper to 2 ingots, going from just the 1 production to times 5 production. And then we take those 2 ingots and sending them to the toolsmith, which turns the ingots into tools, going from times 5 production to times 8 production. And as you can see, we've unlocked a lot of different improvement types. Everything from talismans to ovens, harbors and sawmills to public schools. There's also another symbol up here called specialist points. And as you may suspect, some of the improvements don't just cost improvement points, they'll also cost specialist points. You can see our cultural powers have grown. I'm definitely going to use hosting an Olympic Games. And we're getting a lot of wealth, knowledge, experience, warfare, and diplomacy experience. And those bonuses were improved through the fact that we've unlocked so much in the Olympian National Spirit chain. Our army down here is outfitted with arquebuses and cannons, whereas this one only has the arquebuses and some pikes. Well, this is another major difference in Millennia. You don't spend gold to upgrade these units when you unlock the next tech. You upgrade via warfare experience. Our warfare domain has 84 experience in it. We could do some of these abilities, or we can just upgrade this existing army. So now our pikes are turning it into muskets. We're in the Age of Enlightenment. I kind of like the idea of being able to increase my maximum army size again, so we're going to go into standing army. But notice there are now 4 different ages, and that's after, well, quite a bit of gameplay. As you can see, the Age of Enlightenment is our 6th age. It'll now take 4 researches to unlock one of these, which allows me to highlight yet another example of where Millennia shines and differs from others in the 4X community, is there's this sort of standard path that we took through history, which would be going through the Age of Revolution. But there's these alternate ages. Some of them are considered crisis ages, and some of the ages border on the what if. For instance, the Age of Aether is sort of if we went into a steampunk direction. And the fact that Paradox is publishing this means you know there's going to be some amazing, juicy DLC. And if I know Paradox, my guess is those DLC packs are going to include even more ages. I'm out of time in this video, but I'd love to be able to keep showing you more Millennia. Mostly because, well, I'm just having a blast playing it. As a reminder, you can check out the game in the link in the description and in the pinned comment. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.